Stafford.
Thank you very much, Ms Harris, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship today. And I want to congratulate my honourable friend, the member for South West Devon, for securing such an important debate. Keen observers of Westminster Hall debates will notice that my honourable friend responded on behalf of His Majesty's Government to my debate this morning, so there is a nice symmetry to the fact that I'm responding to hers. And she gave an excellent summary of the current system and the impact that the changes that happened overnight will have on adopters, carers and, of course, on the children that they support. Honourable members across this chamber have powerfully demonstrated the impact that this is having on their constituents, and my seat of Farnham, Borden, Hazelmere, Liphook and its surrounding villages is no different. Honourable members will forgive me that because so many spoke, I won't be able to talk about all, but I do want to pay special tribute to those members who expressed their personal experiences in this matter. Firstly, I want to note the strong record of the previous Conservative government in supporting kinship carers, adoptive families and some of the most vulnerable children in our society. Whilst others have made promises, we took action. But there is no doubt there is more to do, which is why I welcome today's debate. The Conservatives, I believe, hold a strong record for prioritising and increasing adoption and strengthening kinship policy making, for example, by introducing the Adoption and Special Guardianship Support Fund. This fund provided financial support to local authorities and regional adoption agencies to pay for essential therapeutic services for the most vulnerable children. However, the government's decision to cut this fund was a retrograde step and places significant stress on the near 17,000 applicants who, in 2023-2024 alone, utilised services such as family therapy, parental training and creative therapeutic intervention. Furthermore, it is highly regrettable that the government failed to provide clarity on the continuation of the support fund before its expiry on the 31st of March this year. And despite repeated calls for assurance, including from practitioners and sector leaders, Labour delayed their announcement. And when it finally came, as the honourable member for York Central stated, it confirmed a 40% reduction in the fair access limit, capping support at £3,000 per child per year, compared to the £5,000 families could access previously. This reduction now places pressure on local authorities to bridge a shortfall of almost £34 million using already stretched children's services budgets. The Minister has previously stated that the additional support can be provided above the cap, but only at the discretion and at the financial behest of local councils. And as honourable members have said, many local authorities are not in the position to do so. Even if they are in a position to do so, this approach risks creating a postcode lottery in support for some of the most vulnerable children and leaving out others. I'm very happy to.
Joe Robinson.
And as one of the vice chairs of the APPG on kinship care, along with the honourable member for Twickenham, I'd just like to add my voice to those calling for a reversal of the cuts, but for the government to actually go further than that and better support families in adoption and in kinship care.
Shadow Minister Stafford.
Thank you. I thank my honourable friend for the Isle of Wight East. I know what a doughty champion he is for this cause, and I entirely agree with him. The government needs to set out precisely what it's going to do going forward, as well as reversing the cut that it made. So I would like to use the opportunity to seek clarification on what the Minister's adoption strategy is outside of the delayed and unfair cuts she has made so far for these children. We know that in 2024 there are nearly 3,000 looked after children who were adopted. So putting aside the fund that we've been talking about, how is the Minister going to support these vulnerable children? While the continuation of essential schemes remained, let's say, grey under this government, adoptive families now cite a lack of support as a key barrier. Without essential support, the whole adoption process risks becoming what former MP and Children's Minister Tim Lawton called a false economy. Because the truth is, when we fail to invest in adoption, especially in kinship care, we end up relying more heavily on a state system that, in the long run, costs more and too often fails children. It leaves them more vulnerable to poor outcomes, including higher risks of criminal involvement and limited aspirations. Adoption, when done right, offers the security, stability and sense of belonging that every child deserves, and we should support it accordingly. Likewise, the deeply flawed Children's Wellbeing in Schools Bill represents a major failure for kinship carers. The lack of statutory obligations and concerns about the sufficiency of financial support highlights the need for continued advocacy and potential further legislative action to ensure kinship carers and the children they support receive comprehensive support. These carers typically receive little financial or emotional support, despite playing a vital role in keeping children out of the formal care system. These often unsung heroes deserve better. And that's why the previous government introduced the Social Impact Bond, SIB model, an innovative funding approach that backed targeted projects to support kinship families. These included initiatives like training and guidance for carers, family group conferencing, where social workers bring family and carers around the table to discuss the most viable options for the long term, and other structured efforts are undertaken to prevent the breakdown of kinship placement, which, if unsupported, can push children into the care system. One notable example is the Kinship Connected Bill, funded by private investment. It not only aimed to relieve pressure on local authorities, but more importantly, to enhance stability and well-being for the children at the heart of these families through rehoming children with their grandparents when the immediate family had broken down, ensuring siblings remain together and receive consistent supportive care within their extended family network. This approach prioritised emotional continuity and minimised the trauma often associated with foster care placements. Both kinship care and adoption offer vital, human-centred alternatives to the traditional care system, yet too often these pathways are undervalued. To truly serve the best interests of children, we must ask local authorities and ensure that they are supported and broaden our strategy to actively support and invest in family-based solutions that exist beyond the boundaries of state control. Ms Harris, the Minister has been widely praised by members on the government side this afternoon. This is the time to live up to that reputation. Therefore, I would like to close my remarks with 4 questions to the Minister. How is the government working with local authorities to ensure they are able to provide the best care available for vulnerable children, especially following the cut to the Adoption and Special Guardianship Fund? Second, and similarly, what steps will the Minister take to ensure sustained and equitable support for kinship carers, particularly in light of cuts to that fund and the absence of statutory obligations in current legislation? 3. How are the government ensuring that private capital is not isolated by their state-focused strategy to ensure that as much investment can be awarded to worthy schemes for kinship care? And finally, how is the government extending the family group conferencing to ensure that children are kept within the family unit where they can be safe and happy for as long as possible? Ms Harris, I agree with the Honourable Member for Redditch. I will take up my pitchfork too and go to the Treasury to get this funding. We have a duty of care to these children. We need to support adopters and carers, for if not, the financial cost will be great, but the human cost will be far greater.
Minister Janet Davey.
Thank you, Madam Chair.